which says home, Ryan White. Some of you might recognize that name. He was a young boy. Here's a picture of him that Eileen brought. Eileen's partner Sue was in touch with his mother, which is here a picture of her as well, and his family during the time when they were dealing with the, what do you call it? What was she doing with his family, Eileen?
She was just helping to raise funds and awareness of what was happening out there.
So take a look at this. We'll be in the back on the way out. I just wanted to share a few of those important information about this quilt. And I'll tell you what, the energy of it is palpable. Last week it was really hitting my heart pretty strongly. It's not any different this week. You're welcome. During our meditation time, when we'll be lighting a candle, you're welcome that if you know someone who has died due to the AIDS illness or who is currently HIV positive, you're welcome to put their name in a sticky note on that We Remember board over there. So we'll have to slide down a little bit during the meditation, but you're welcome to do that as a way of remembrance and honoring. All right? So let's take a deep breath together, because we're going to switch consciousness streams at this point in time, because we're going to stand and sing the first Christmas carol on your list.
Oh, forgot to give them away out.
Oh, and I forgot to give them out, so stand and sing. Hark the herald angels sing. Please stand.
Sweet silver bells
started with the Christmas story. We're in Advent, so I'm talking about the four ideas that and the way that we prepare ye the way of the Lord kind of thing, right? So last week I talked about peace. And this week I want to talk about hope. I love the idea of hope. I was telling several people, I looked at my message last year for the hope, and I thought, oh, that will just not do this year. That will just not do. You know why? Because I'm in a different place. And what you get from me is, well, wherever I am. and the same with you, really. The way you bring yourself to a holiday or an event, it's not the same every year. And I said, we can look at the Christmas story as how it actually happened, right? The literal interpretation of it. Or we can also look at the metaphysical interpretation, like what was really going on here? What else could we glean from this story besides the physical nature of it? Matthew and Luke, where the Christmas story is written, was written 80 and 100 years after the birth of Jesus. And, it wasn't written down as if it was a biography at the time or an autobiography. So it's passed down in an oral tradition for some time. And the ideas in the story this week that I want to bring to your attention are that revolve around hope are the wise men and the shepherds. And the wise men who followed a star that was rising in the east and followed that to where the stable where Jesus was lying. And also the shepherds who found their sign with the angel appearing above in the heavens and said, hey, something is happening here. You might want to take a look at what's going on. So I'm thinking, well, what were the writers really trying to tell us about this? Metaphysically, what could we say? What could we use today about that story rather than just it being a story besides the birth of Jesus? And so I was thinking, okay, well, what did they both do? They both looked up, by the way. They both looked up. And don't we sometimes miss that as a way to get guidance, is to lift our eyes up, lift our mind up, lift our heart up, to lift ourselves up to get guidance, to get out of the weeds of where we are sometimes. Are you in the weeds? I've been in the weeds with several things lately. Okay, but to look up, and that's where we're going to find some guidance. That's where we get a wider view of things, right? Is when we look up and when we're not looking down. Sometimes I think the simplest way to change your breathing is to simply look up. Doesn't that make you want to just take a deep breath when you look up? And I think sometimes when we pray, rather than to bow our heads, maybe we should be looking up. Maybe we should be taking in the glory of the Lord. Maybe we should take it in like that instead of bowing down and separating ourselves from that. So looking up and out, think about what we look up and out at. We look up and out at clouds. We look up and out at the stars, at the endless sea out in front of us. We look really at the majesty of creation when we look up and out. The majesty of creation. Maybe it's simply up in the forest and seeing through the branches of the trees and noticing the birds. To look up and out changes our perspective, changes our perception. And I think that's a message, and getting some guidance, getting some clarity by looking up and out. That was one thing I noticed. The other thing was that both of these groups of men did, as far as I know they were men, the wise men and the shepherds, is to show up and offer your best. To show up. I'm thinking, those wise men might be thinking, well, it's nice and cozy where I am. Like, why do I want to get out there and follow a star? How long is it going to take to get there? Why can't I just stay here and be wise? Right? How often we're afraid to get out of our comfort zones, to go and see something new, to discover something we might not have discovered. Or maybe you're the shepherds, right? You're out in the field, you're like, hey, I got a whole flock to take care of. And I'm going to follow this, go into Bethlehem. What's going to happen to all my sheep? I'm better off just staying right here, taking care of everything the way it is. Well, no, sometimes we have to just make that effort to get out of our comfort zone to find that thing that's going to clear it up for us. And not just show up, but show up with your best stuff. The wise men took their best things with the gold, frankincense, and myrrh. They took the best things. They didn't rummage around the closet for the thing that was used. They found the best thing. How often do we take the best bottle of the line for a hostess gift? Or instead of recycling something we have, going and getting that perfect thing for that person, right? Taking the best. You might say, well, what did the shepherds take? Well, the shepherds took their homage, they took their words and their sincerity. And what did they take away? They took away and told people what happened. Okay? So it doesn't necessarily have to mean a thing, but you show up. You show up and you show up with your best. I think that's what the story might be telling us. So I think also these wise men and shepherds really do represent this idea of hope. This candle, this second candle that we're lighting during the Advent season, this season of preparation, this season of prepare ye the way of the Lord. In other words, prepare myself for a new and greater understanding. You know, that's what I'm talking about. So I've been thinking about hope and what it is and what it means and how sometimes it's hard to come by. I mean, isn't it hard to be hopeful when you're in despair? Hard to be hopeful when you're grieving? Hard to be hopeful when you are in anguish or when you are in pain? Like, it's hard to be hopeful in those situations. And I think that it is presumptuous of us to expect others who are in those places, who are in deep pain, who are in deep despair, who are in anguish. And in fact, I think it is preposterous for us to even say, hey, well, just look up. Just look up. Paula said, just look up. Just look up. I mean, things are going to get better. You're going to be fine. I think that's preposterous for us to say that. For people who are in that place of difficulty, and I don't think that's the place for us to say, look up. No, I think our expectation is misguided there when we're talking about hope. Here's the truth about hope. I want to read this short note from a book by David Rico called The 5 Things We Cannot Change. Spiritual truth is not always available to consciousness when we are in the depths of despair. That void of despair, that void of anguish, that void of grief, deserves its own time and space. Hope is a clarion that can only be sounded or hearkened to when the time is right. Do you hear that? It's available to us when the time is right, but when we are in that place of hurt, and we're humans. We hurt. We fall down. We get twisted up. We get lost. I have gotten lost before, haven't you? And in that place, it seems as if hope is gone. It seems like it's not even close by, is what it seems like everything is gray. But here's the thing. The miracle of hope is that it waits. That it waits there. And it waits for us to just be able to see a dim light. Just that little flicker. It waits for us. It waits for us. It beckons to us. Like your card says. What does that card says? To try it one more time. Right? To try it one more time. Hope is like grace. It's like universal love. It's like God itself. It's always there. It's always waiting. It's waiting for us to just pivot just a little bit, to turn toward just a little bit. And it says, here I am. I've been here all along. That's what I think hope is, to be in that difficult place, that difficult experience that we're in, and to finally see a tiny flower. To finally, after weeks or months, be able to laugh. That's hope, I think. And hope waits with extreme patience, my friends, right in our heart, waiting for that, waiting for us to turn, to pivot toward that place. Hope says this. Here's what I've come to understand. Hope says this. You will find your way. Hope says, in fact, hope promises that. Hope promises that you will find your way. My good friend Maggie says it this way. You got this. You got this. That's what hope says. You got this. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like in the end. I don't know if you'll be healed. I don't know if the person will live or die. I don't know any of that. But you know what? You got this. Because you will find a way. That's what hope says. You will find a way. Hope allows us to take a breath and to not fall completely apart. That's what hope allows us to do. That once elusive, that once invisible, that once seemingly impossible, hope arrives at the moment that we take the tiniest turn toward it. And you know what? I thank God for that. I thank God that I don't have to do more than take the tiniest turn in that direction. So, you know, I've been dealing with this knee replacement, and I've been watching my feet a lot. And rightly so, because I do not want to fall. I do not want to trip. I don't want to step sideways and find myself in a place that going backwards. I do not want to do that. So I'm looking down for good reason, but I have been looking down. But just this week, guess what happened? Just this week, I have been able to take my eyes up just a little bit and look out just a little bit further. And in fact, I went out on our back patio this week and I trimmed some summer flowers off. And I was like, oh, I'm like looking out just a little ways, you know? I'm still watching my feet, but I had a little bit wider view than I had just last week. And I think that's what hope is. I think that's what hope is. It was my small opening. It wasn't that, you know, I wasn't like the wise men. I wasn't like the shepherds. I wasn't able to see the starry sky, but I was able to lift my chin just a little bit. Just a tiny bit. To see a little bit more than I saw the week before. It was that nudge from somewhere inside of me. It was that miraculous whisper that said, yeah, I know it doesn't look like you want it to look like out here, but I want you to know you will find a way. I promise you, you will find a way. That hope was really there all along for me to lift my chin, to get a glimpse, to turn toward, to make that pivot. And I'll tell you what happens. Once it happens, once that pivot is made, hope becomes essential. It is wonderful. It is wonderful. It is what I have turned to trust the rest of the week long. There inside of me. It's that glimmer, it's that dim light that's starting to flicker just a little bit brighter, that's asking me to lift my chin up just a little bit more every day. To see the stars, to see the mountains, to see the horizon, to see the wonder of creation again and for the first time. And I know, the other thing I know about hope is that it rests on something bigger. You know, it rests on that like pulse in the universe. It rests because, here's the thing, the reason I know that is hope is not discouraged by anything it sees out here. The hope in me is not discouraged by anything out here. Oh, Polly, you still got a swollen knee? No problem. Okay? Oh, you're dealing with grief in your life? You know, I have a good, one of my coaching clients lost her dog about a month ago. You know, oh, you lost your dog? No worries. I'll be here for you when you're ready to turn. It's not discouraged by anything out there because hope knows who you really are. Hope knows that you are the divine expression of God itself. Hope knows that. And hope knows the potential that you have to know that and live that for yourself. It is the divine in you saying, you will find a way. I promise you, you will find a way. So today, in this season of Advent, we've lit the candle. I've lit the candle for hope. The prepare ye the way of the Lord hope. The hope that says that it's a miracle, that it resides in me, always ready for me to turn. That hope waits in me, in my very being. That it promises me that I will find a way. That I will find a way. It's a promise of hope. So our affirmation today is, the miracle of hope in me is, I will find my way. The miracle of hope in me is, I will find my way. Can you say that with me? The miracle of hope in me is, I will find my way. And so it is. So I invite you, as we prepare for meditation, to, when you're ready, and I've written that affirmation here so that you can see it again and affirm it if you wish. Affirm a different one. Y'all can come and get ready for meditation. And light the candle. I will remind you to please, what? Plant your candle at the rear so we don't have any sleeves of fire. Sleeves of fire. And make it easy for everyone as well. So let's take a deep breath in and out. And make that affirmation. If it feels right for you, that the promise of hope is that I will find my way. The promise of hope, I will find my way.
a tree upon a hill, star upon the snow, strong against the chill, struggling in the darkness. It was her time for her, bearing in her womb the King of all the earth. They found a kind of glory the mighty never see. It was so long ago, but he remembers still. Star among the snow, strong against the chill, a planet dancing slow, a tree upon a star upon the snow, strong against the chill. There within a stable, a baby drew a breath. There began a life that put an end to death, and in the frozen stillness, mighty voices heard. God is here among us, human is the word. It was so long ago, but we remember still. Star upon the snow, strong against the chill, a planet dancing slow, a tree upon a hill, star upon the snow, strong against the chill, star upon the snow, strong against the chill.
As an old man walked the beach at dawn, he noticed a boy ahead of him picking up starfish and flinging them into the sea. Finally catching up with the boy, he asked, why was he doing this? The answer was that the stranded starfish would die if left until the morning sun. But the beach goes on for miles and there are millions of starfish, said the old man. How can your effort make any difference? The boy looked at the starfish in his hand and then threw it safely in the waves. It makes a difference to this one, he said. Hope.
help us if you can. He shook his head, but he pointed his hand. There's a new kid in town, and he's lying in a manger down the road. There's a new kid in town, but he's just another baby, I suppose. Heaven knows there's a new kid in town here in Bethlehem. I see you travel far, bearing treasures. You say these gifts are for the new king's pleasures. I've heard that a king might come, but until now there hasn't been one. There's a new kid in town, and he's lying in a manger down the road. There's a new kid in town, but he's just another baby, I suppose. Heaven knows there's a new kid in town here in Bethlehem. There's a new kid in town, and he's lying in a manger down the road. There's a new kid in town, but he's just another baby, I suppose. Heaven knows there's a new kid in town